Live with Mark and Kelly fans are well aware that Kelly Ripa occasionally loses her temper with crew members, but this week's tantrum only resulted in a producer silencing her. Despite the fact that it likely angered her, she decided to overlook it because it included a guest section. After the show, they might have had it out. Real-time Kelly Ripa appearing furious with her staff during her talk show. Mark Consuelo's fiery wife doesn't hesitate to reprimand those who irritate her. In fact, she doesn't hesitate to confront those that irritate her. Therefore, it's best to behave appropriately in the audience as well. On the morning talk show, she occasionally even criticizes her husband. On a lovely beach, Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos returned to a chilly and depressing New York after their hiatus. Kelly may have been grumpy because she became sarcastic with a producer on Tuesday, which made her yearn for a return to warmer climates. You may have guessed by now that Michael Gelman was the producer with whom she had a falling out. In fact, some viewers of Live with Kelly and Mark think they are in a love-hate relationship. A producer on Live Kelly, Hushed Strive for More in 24 is a new feature on Live with Kelly and Mark that is doing well, according to The Sun. But when you pair Mark's wife with Michael Gelman, the sparks ignite. It is common for the producer to be the victim of mistreatment. This time, however, he silenced her with his finger. It happened as a teacher was encouraging them to work out. She then said something that sounded like, "You're breathing all over me," which was difficult to hear on the footage as the audience began to react. As he worked out, Michael wasn't letting her get on his nerves. In order to prevent them from interrupting him, he said, "Shh," pointing to the fitness instructor and shushing her. Michael appeared to have won the day's points because the guest instructor wasn't humiliated when the main host dropped the topic. Note that the instructor and Mark both saw what was happening. How do you feel about Michael Gelman, the producer, simply keeping Kelly Ripa quiet on her own show? Are you relieved she refrained from escalating the disagreement further and ruining the fitness instructors section of the show? Leave a comment below with your thoughts, and return here for all of your Live with Kelly and Mark updates. There are moments in live television that disappear as quickly as they appear, barely noticed by the millions watching at home. But every now and then, a small disruption breaks through the polished rhythm of daytime TV and exposes the raw, unfiltered reality behind the cameras. That is exactly what happened on a recent episode of Live with Kelly and Mark, when Kelly Ripa was unexpectedly hushed by a producer on air, leaving viewers stunned, confused, and endlessly curious about what really happened. It was supposed to be a routine morning. The studio audience was energetic, the music swelled, and Kelly and Mark made their usual cheerful entrance. Kelly greeted the crowd with her signature bright energy, and Mark followed with a grin that suggested nothing unusual was coming. But beneath the smooth surface of the show, something was shifting. As the hosts settled into their opening banter, Kelly launched into a story she had teased moments earlier backstage. She was excited, animated, and clearly ready to share it with the audience. Mark leaned in with interest, and the cameras tightened to capture the moment. But before Kelly could finish the first few sentences, something unexpected happened. A voice, soft but firm, cut through the studio from just off camera. It was unmistakably a producer instructing Kelly to pause. It wasn't loud, but it was clear enough that the front rows of the audience heard it. Kelly stopped mid-sentence, her expression flickering between surprise and confusion. Mark raised an eyebrow, unsure whether to keep going or give her space. For a moment, a rare silence fell over the usually seamless broadcast. Kelly attempted to continue, but the producer stepped forward again with a subtle hand gesture, signaling her to hold back. This time, it was visible on camera. Viewers at home saw Kelly's face shift, her smile tightening as she processed the interruption. It was a brief moment, the kind that lasts only seconds in real time, yet long enough to set off waves of speculation online. The studio audience murmured. Mark, ever the professional, tried to lighten the mood by shifting into another topic, but it was clear Kelly was thrown off. She glanced to the side of the stage, her eyes narrowing just slightly, trying to interpret what was happening. The story she was attempting to share hung unfinished in the air. For a show like Lev, where the charm lies in its spontaneous, unscripted energy, an on-air hush from a producer is unusual. Kelly has been hosting for decades, and she is no stranger to last-minute changes, time cues, or rearranged segments. But a visible, audible interruption, one that asks her to stop speaking, that is something entirely different. When the show cut to commercial, audience members reported seeing Kelly step toward the sidelines, clearly addressing the producer. Her gestures were small, controlled, but filled with a restrained sharpness. Mark stood by the desk, giving her space but watching closely. Whatever was said in those few minutes off-air was quiet enough not to carry across the studio, but the tension was unmistakable. When the show returned, Kelly was back in her seat, polished and composed. But if you watch carefully, you could see the difference. Her tone was steadier but cautious, her words measured in a way that suggested she had been advised to adjust. Mark helped steer the segments, adding a touch more commentary than usual to make up for her slight hesitancy. Social media erupted almost instantly. Clips circulated, slowed down, and analyzed. Fans questioned whether Kelly had attempted to reveal something the producers didn't want aired. Others speculated it was a time management issue, that her story would have pushed the show past its tightly structured schedule. Some suggested tension behind the scenes, referencing recent rumors about changes in the show's production hierarchy. Kelly Ripa has always had a unique presence on television, quick-witted, candid, and unafraid to share personal moments. That transparency is part of why viewers have embraced her for so many years. But it is also why a moment like this feels bigger than it might for any other host. When Kelly gets interrupted, it feels like something is being kept from the audience. Over the next segments, Kelly regained her rhythm, but she did not return to the story that had been halted. The show moved on to interviews, games, and guest segments, pushing forward with its usual pacing. But the earlier incident cast a shadow across the rest of the broadcast. When the cameras finally stopped rolling, backstage reports suggested Kelly spent several minutes speaking with multiple producers. The discussion was private, but several staff members later described the atmosphere as tense but controlled. Kelly was not angry. She is too seasoned for a visible meltdown. But she was clearly unsettled by the unusual interference. Mark, always supportive, reportedly stayed by her through the conversation, offering his perspective and ensuring she was not handling the situation alone. Their partnership, both personal and professional, remains one of the show's strongest anchors, and he played a steadying role as the team worked through what had happened. By the next day, online conversation had reached full speculation mode. Fans debated theories, some humorous, some serious. Was Kelly about to reveal a backstage secret? A celebrity slip? A spoiler from an upcoming segment? Or was the interruption simply a miscommunication from a new producer still adjusting to the show's format? What makes this moment particularly striking is how rare such disruptions are. Live television thrives on unpredictability, but not this kind. When something breaks the illusion of control, viewers are reminded that even the most polished broadcasts are vulnerable to human error, emotional reactions, and sudden decisions. If the intention of the producer was to prevent Kelly from sharing something unplanned, it had the opposite effect. The hush created more curiosity, more speculation, and more attention than any story Kelly might have told. It became the story. By the end of the week, the show continued with its familiar rhythm. Kelly was her usual vibrant self, laughing, teasing, and engaging with guests effortlessly. But viewers watching closely could still see a subtle change, a touch more caution, a slight glance toward the sidelines before diving into a story. It's unlikely that the show will address the moment publicly. Daytime TV thrives on moving forward, not backward, but fans will remember it. These rare instances, where the curtain is pulled back just enough to glimpse the machinery behind the charm, are the moments that stick.